Hey guys, and welcome to your Unit 1 recap. You are going to want to open your Unit 1 annotating guide and have that ready to go. So get that done before we get started. You can go ahead and pause if you need to. All right, we're going to start off with reasons for exploration. So reasons for exploration. Remember the 3 G's? We talked about it in 7th grade. We talked about that when we talked about Spanish exploration. They came for gold, didn't find any. God, they wanted to convert the Indians in Texas and in North and South America by building missions. It didn't work so well. And they came for glory. Then we didn't talk about last year. The other group that came over from Europe were the French, and they basically came for the fur trade. The way I remember it, feel free to laugh, is apple bottom jeans, French with the fur. Okay, are you done laughing? Great, let's move on to the ones that we're talking about here in 8th grade too. And that's primarily our British explorers are the ones from England, and they came, and we're going to look at it through the lens of pegs. So political, they came to expand their empire. Okay, countries were kind of small over there in Europe. They needed more space. They wanted to spread out, had a lot of land. Economic, gold and wealth and trade routes. Geographic, they could gain more territory. And social, they came to escape religious persecution. Persecution just means you're being treated poorly. So what would a practice question look like? And I want you to use the annotation guide. You'll see I've also put it over here for you. It won't be on all of them, so have it ready. So this question, and no, I don't have the multiple choices on here, so we're going to figure it out together. Which of these describes the primary reason for French colonization? Okay, now this talks about European colonization. Now, I remember that stupid song Miss Grove sang with apple bottom jeans, French with the fur. I also have an annotation guide that tells me French came for fur. So if I were going to write on this, I would underline it, and then I would write the word fur. So which one of these talks about fur? Number 1 says to convert American Indians in the Southwest to Catholicism. 2, to cultivate cash crops in the Chesapeake Bay area. 3, to extract precious metals from mines in present-day Mexico. Or 4, to profit from fur trading in the Great Lakes region. Seriously? Seriously. Good job. Next up, let's talk about geography and economy. So we have 13 colonies. We break them into 3 regions. Our first region up here, okay, is going to be our New England region. Okay, then we have our middle region and our southern region. So let's talk about some differences with those. So, some vocabulary you need to know. The word region is just talking about areas of land with similar features. When we're talking about geography, we're talking about land and climate of the area. That includes rainfall, types of soil. And when we talk about economy, we're talking about money. Okay, so how do they make their money? So, let's look up here. New England colonies, these are the ones at the top. Massachusetts, right? New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut. So they had large forests. What does this mean for them? Economically, at least. It means they had raw materials. So they could cut down trees, send it over back to Great Britain, right? When they cut down the tree, it's called lumber. They also use that lumber for building ships. If you look over here, there's a lot of coastline right here. It's great for building ships. Now, oceans and rivers, great for transportation. Also, port cities like Boston, test question, and used for trade. Now, they had a very short growing season, which meant they did very little farming. They also had rocky soil, so farming wasn't the best way for them to make money. They could grow just enough to really feed themselves, but they weren't balling. They weren't making a lot of money. So they did something called subsistence farming that was just enough to feed their family. So let's look at this practice question. Use the annotation guide. Yes, I've provided it because I love you. So, which physical characteristics made these economic activities possible? Economic means money. So, this little chart up here says industries of the New England colonies: shipbuilding, fishing, fur trapping and trading, lumber milling. All right, use the annotation guide. Which of these is the best answer? Hope you got it right. Let's do another practice question. Which, look, didn't give you the little chart. You better go find it. It was in Google Classroom. Which American colony's economy was based primarily on shipbuilding and fishing? All right, I've provided the map. See if you can figure it out. All right, let's transition down to these middle colonies. That includes New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. So they had an average growing season. So you'll notice the further south, the further down we go, the more farming they're able to do. So average, kind of like, a little bit. This meant that they did some farming, mostly grains like wheat. They were nicknamed the bread basket. Oh, I forgot my little parentheses there. They had moderately or medium, it's another word for it, fertile soil. So it's So they also had trade. This was the most diverse economy. So they had trade, but they also did farming. They raised animals, a little bit of everything. All right, practice question. Get that annotation guide back out. Pay attention, guys. Pay close attention. Which characteristic is correctly matched with the number in the table? Okay. Now, I know it says northern, but this is New England. Okay. Let's see if you guys can match this one. This one's kind of hard. All right. Now let's look at our southern colonies. Southern are the furthest ones in the south. So, like I said, the further south you go, the more farming you did. It was warm, humid. Humid is where like you feel like there's just moisture in the air. It makes your hair frizzy. I don't like it. It's kind of like Texas. Most fertile soil and the longest growing season. So because of that, it was perfect for farming. Okay, they grew something called cash crops. All right, a lot of people grew things to eat. Cash crops are not things you can eat. Things like tobacco and cotton. Cash crops are things that you grew in large amounts to make a lot of money. They used slave labor for something called plantations. Plantations are large farms that were found in the South. Practice question. Go grab the annotation guide. Which of the following contributed most to the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade during the 1700s? Okay, transatlantic slave trade was part of the slave trade in the South. All right, let's keep rolling. Here's another practice question. Transatlantic slave trade. Which of the following was a major reason for the flow of the transatlantic slave trade shown in the map? Again, look at your annotating guide. Look at your word associations. Find the word associations. All right, religion. So we have the Puritans. They settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts. They came to escape religious persecution, meaning they were being treated poorly back in Great Britain. Fun fact, the Puritans were actually more strict than the Catholics. They actually wanted more rules. They thought the Catholics were too fancy, too showy, too bling bling, okay? Always trying to flex on religion. So they wanted it to be very strict, very no fun. There would be no fun had by the Puritans. And so they decided to break away. They came over here. Strangely enough, they actually persecuted other religions that came to North America, but that's not tested. I'll move on. Two important people you need to know. Thomas Hooker and Roger Williams were Puritans that broke away from the Puritan Church in Massachusetts because they disagreed with a lot of what they were doing, persecuting others and not allowing voting rights and things like that. These two guys, you need to know, they left the church and founded two new colonies. Thomas Hooker actually founded Connecticut. So, practice question. In the 1830s, Thomas Hooker and Roger Williams disagreed with the religious leaders of Massachusetts, Puritans. These disagreements were resolved when Hooker and Williams, all right, Then we have the Catholics. They settled in Maryland. Okay, I always remember like the Catholic Church has like the Mother Mary, like Jesus's mom, Mary Land, and they also wanted religious freedom. They try to stay away from the Puritans. So, Catholics immigrated to Maryland colony in the 17th century primarily to, use your annotation guide, you got it. One more, do another one. Take your time. Massachusetts, because it says which colony correctly completes the diagram. Okay, so Massachusetts was a refuge for English Puritans, meaning they came here to get away. Okay, so what colony was a refuge for the Catholics? All right, self-government. It's our last section. Self-government also kind of goes into representative government. So why did colonists start self-governing? Well, it was because of something called salutary neglect. So because of the distance between the colonies and Great Britain, they chose to meaning Great Britain, let colonists kind of run their own government. They were super chill about enforcing rules, well, until they weren't, but that's the next unit. I have this guy here. I wear my sunglasses, so I can't see what those colonists over in America are up to, for now anyway. So if we look at it like a chart, we have 4 major documents that you're tested over. So we're going to look at what did this document or meeting do, and what impact does it have on representative government. So self-government, we're just going to govern ourselves. We don't need Great Britain to tell us what to do. And representative government, we're going to vote for other people to kind of represent us in government. And we've talked about that in Unit 3. So we have the Mayflower Compact. It established rules based on majority rule. So they voted. Okay. It was the first self-governing in the colonies. And you need to know, we left the word out, social contract. So for what reason did a group of colonists agree to this compact? Ready? Oh my God, it's too long. I don't want to read it. Well, neither do I. But I look at the author or the document. It comes from the Mayflower Compact, 1620. So what do I know about it? I know that it was self-government and it was a social contract. Can I answer this question without having to read all this? Absolutely. You do it now. You're welcome. All right, now, Virginia House of Burgesses, not burgers, happens all the time, was representatives created laws. This is the first group of elected representatives. People voted for them, okay? That's republicanism that we talked about later on in the semester, okay? They're also referred to as an assembly. So, yes, I'm being nice and giving you the annotation guide. The Virginia Company authorized a general assembly in Virginia so that colonies could. They're talking about the Virginia House of Burgesses. What did they authorize them to do, or authorize them so they could do what? All right, Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. It provided many rights. This is the first example, guys, of a constitution. That's really what you need to know. So, Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. Which statement best describes the influence of this document? Okay, so defined and limited the powers of government, created a general assembly, granted government the right to levy and collect taxes. So if I come over here, I know it represents self-government, which is what most of these do. So what's the answer? I know it's redundant. That means repeating. All right, in our last group, English Bill of Rights. And guys, this happened like way before America got a Bill of Rights. This provides citizens with rights. Some examples include no taxation without representation and no cruel and unusual punishment. So you guys maybe can like think about why the colonists were like irritated, because they had these rights back in Great Britain, but they didn't have them as colonists. Okay, Americans still have these rights today. I'll let that off. You don't need to know it though. All right, these liberties today. We actually have a Bill of Rights. So I don't have a practice question. You survived. If you did not get at least a 70, you need to message your teacher in Google Classroom